Here we are today, and then here's the roadmap of all the Agile disciplines, and Agile coaching is right there in the center. Do you want to say anything about the track in relation to the other tracks on the roadmap? Is it, as I indicated, the kind of backbone or first track that was laid out?
I believe it was. If it might have been in parallel with
the development one, I think.
The development one, and the requirements value management might have been close along that time.
I think it was the first to be completed and used.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first to start, it was the first coming out the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure why it's in the center. I think that's kind of nice. I've never noticed that before.
Yeah.
Well, and so people, when the learning objectives got released, started developing courses around them.
Mm-hmm.
And how were you aware maybe of how people started to use the objectives to develop courses?
I think we were aware of how we were using them.
Well, there you are. That's why you're the track authors here.
Yeah. I think maybe it might be helpful to say a little bit about how we developed them.
Good idea.
Yeah. You know, we were all coming with different, I think, aspirations. Michael Spade was actually also part of this team, as well as Ahmed Saki was part of the contributor to this track. And we approached it from a perspective of wanting to contribute to the community, not wanting to necessarily develop something. And there's some, I don't know, somebody's got a call going on in the background or something, I think, or a conversation.
If I can take care of that for us.
Oh, I almost started dancing.
Yeah. So we came at it from the perspective of wanting to contribute something to the community, and sort of dropped so Lyssa, you all at the time also had a coaching class, right?
A 2-day coaching Agile teams class at the point that we started creating this track.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we all came into the room and said, okay, we're dropping what we do in the world.
Yeah.
We're this with the mindset of, what do we want to see people doing Agile coaching be able to have skills, knowledge, and mindset for at different levels? And in fact, at the end of it, our 2-day coaching Agile teams class didn't measure up to the learning objectives we created. And we went through a very arduous and frustrating process, just like every other track or course designer has to go through to map it all up. So Michael and I and Marsha, we all looked at each other and said, well, at least we know that we did this for the community, because our own courses, didn't actually quite measure up.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had developed a facilitation class along with Ahmed, and we had the same experience. We didn't make it through the accreditation gate on the first go around. So I believe that that's just something about how we separated the development of the learning objectives from actually the development of the classes that we were working on.
Yeah.
So that felt really important.
Yeah, it feels very important. And still today, to me, it feels really important to say to everyone that my allegiance and Agile Coaching Institute's allegiance is to this learning track. And we're really hoping that many certification organizations use it. It's not owned by IC Agile. Those learning objectives are Creative Commons. They're meant to be used by everyone. And that's the idea, because we actually don't need 10 different definitions of what it means to do Agile coaching. Other industries, other professions have a very similar issue as we do, is to define what does it mean to be a professional in something. And then once that's defined, of course, it evolves over time, but people don't sit around and continue disputing it. They just jump on board and they use it. So I'm actually really happy to say that when our courses were accredited to give Scrum education units by the Scrum Alliance, we submitted to them the IC Agile, they're not IC Agiles, the learning objectives that were created through the IC Agile working group, and they were absolutely fine with that. In fact, it was very easy for them to accredit it because they were accrediting against a known pattern a known set of things that had already been published and vetted. Yeah.
Very good. So that leads us into kind of how the track was put together and the plotting the time points and the whole arc of development.
Yeah, I think you pulled up the slide with the dates on it. We began drafting, I believe. Was it June, Lyssa, or was it the spring?
Yeah.
2011. And then we had a review committee that was established with contacts in the Agile community that provided some initial comments on the first draft. And we took those comments and incorporated them into a second draft that was published in October of 2011. And that became the sort of the foundation of how the Agile facilitation and coaching track got released. And then IC Agile started accrediting courses against that track. Not long after that, I believe, early 2012, I believe, was the.
Yeah. And we went through a revision, I think not long after that, Marsha, I can't remember exactly the dates, but once people had been creating courses against the track for a while, we recognized an important need to kind of reorient it a little bit, make it easier for people. And honestly, we reoriented it around the same organization as the Agile Coaching Competency Framework, which Michael Spade and I had resisted because that's something the Agile Coaching Institute created. And it actually is it is very consistent with the Coaching Agile Teams book and how that splits up the world. But after the track had been out there for a while, we really saw where people were struggling. And through some more feedback, we said, okay, now we actually need to just, go with what we know works and makes sense to people.
Yep.
Yeah.
So community reviewed
Yeah.
and took some time, which I think are key points there.
Hmm. And so here's what the kind of path looks like. Huh?
Yeah, it's probably helpful to say a little bit about how this emerged for us, because as we begin to talk about, I think the original conversation started about coaching, and what became clear is that facilitation was a key skill and kind of a foundation for that. And so what began to emerge was the notion of an Agile team facilitator, and then an Agile coach. Both distinctions were a little bit more about how many teams you're working with, whether you're working with one team or whether you're working with multiple teams. And then through that discussion, as we were talking further, what emerged was an enterprise Agile coach, which would work across multiple teams. And we decided as we were writing these learning objectives that enterprise really became a whole new set of learning objectives that really was outside of the scope of this because it was going to make it too large. So this track really became about Agile team facilitators and Agile coaches.
The other reason why we decided to split off the Enterprise Agile Coach track is because everything in the Agile world at this point has been geared toward everyone progressing toward being an Enterprise Agile Coach. And we think that's completely unnecessary. In fact, if we have people who are really good multi-team coaches, program-level coaches, and fantastic Agile team facilitators, call them Scrum Masters or Kanban coaches or whatever your company uses. If we have people who are fantastic at those levels, we will need far fewer Enterprise Agile coaches. And the truth of the matter about Enterprise Agile coaching is that very few people have the skills and especially the presence to do that work well. And many people get drawn into it, don't get me wrong. Plenty of people are working in that sphere, but very few of them have what it takes in terms of both knowledge and presence to be able to work with executives. And that's primarily, at least one of the main things that role requires, or that discipline requires. And so, yes, we want people who are really passionate about that to move into the Enterprise Agile coaching space. And we want to make it clear to people that this is an endpoint too. becoming an IC Agile expert in Agile coaching is a mastery in itself.
Very good. So you're saying that if people stay with teams for their entire career, the expertise is no less, and the need to acknowledge it is just as IC Agile is taking a stand for that through this function.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And it's also a little murky too. I want to be clear about one point is that if you have progressed to the level where you're coaching multiple teams already, it doesn't mean you need the facilitation skill set less. Plenty of people progress in their Agile coaching or beyond the level of even multiple teams, maybe up to like humongous programs, and don't have the basic facilitation skills that are required to have teams own their own results and actually be empowered and take action. This is the whole self-monitoring, self-managed teams we want, right? Well, guess what? Most of the time, we're the ones in the middle, not allowing that to happen. So it kind of doesn't matter where you've gotten to in your Agile career, I don't think. But these levels of facilitation and coaching are critical for anyone.
Yeah.
Is now a good time perhaps to see if anyone has questions or thoughts that have been triggered by the discussion so far?
Yeah, I'd love to hear if there are questions about the track itself.
We can invite people to unmute and say why they're interested here and what they'd like to hear about. Have we given a fair
order what you should do between Agile coaching and team facilitation?
Is there an order to them is the question, yeah? What would you say, Marsha?
I think that's an individual choice. I have a preference or a bias that says facilitation is a great entry point into coaching, but that's a lens that's a path that I followed. So that's my lens on how that can emerge. Yeah. I think that there are plenty of folks that are really skilled as coaches and just haven't made it a priority to get the facilitation skills. It's based on how they're working. So.
Yeah, and I would add to that and say if you've already progressed to the level where you are doing Agile coaching with multiple teams, then either order would work just fine. Mm-hmm. If you are at the level where you are the Scrum Master or Kanban coach or iteration manager of one or a handful of teams and your focus is on helping them use the Agile practices and values well and help them collaborate and have great results, then the one skill set I would say you have to get is facilitation. I mean, I feel so strongly about that, and it's the reason why at Agile Coaching Institute we went backwards, if you will, to create a facilitation class, even when what we really wanted to do was move into the further reaches of coaching and move into systems coaching and those sorts of things. When we looked around the industry, we said, holy moly, if Scrum Masters could just get out of the middle of every conversation, teams actually would have better results. They would be delivering more often. They would be proving the value of Agile, and we'd be having less conversations at the enterprise level about how much longer is this Agile transition going to take. Right? So that's why I think it's like really, I think every Scrum Master needs this skill set, first priority out the gate.
And are both required to get the expert level?
They are.
Yeah. And there's a 6-month practice period from the point that you've achieved all those learning objectives from both of those two levels to when you can actually apply to become an IC Agile expert and start going through that process.
And that ensures that it's not just a quote unquote book knowledge, right? But it's lived experience.
That's definitely not.
Yeah. We have someone on the call who could attest to that.
I think they're referring to you, Kelly. Would you like to say something?
Hi. Yeah, so I went through the track and received my expert certification, I think, back in August. And I can attest to the fact that it's nice to have book knowledge, but the track and the practice period and the panel gate review does stretch your demonstration skills. I spent a great deal of time preparing for the gate review as far as all the criteria needed through the application process and to get to the gate review, and then diligently sat through all the questions that Lyssa had for me to stretch me. So yeah, it's definitely more than book knowledge.
And as we get more IC Agile experts, they are in this track, they are moving into that process and being trained in being a fully fledged panelist, so that we can have more variety, and it's not just the track creators doing it anymore. There's obviously an inherent bias in that, and we're probably harder on people than other people will be in the future, although we're going to try really hard to let the standard flow downhill.
Well, you made an interesting point that there's a kind of a generative quality to this track, and that the track designers set up a system where experts can acknowledge each other and sit for each other's panels, and that's part of the design, right? When you're an expert, you're agreeing to do that for others.
Yeah.
We move forward then to the general program overview, but certainly anyone who wants to chime in or ask a question is invited to do so in this part of the call.
Excuse me, my name is Kate. I'm calling from Melbourne. I just have a quick question around change management. I'm an Agile coach for multiple teams, and I'm finding change management is really important in helping these teams move from a traditional to Agile environment. I'm just wondering whether change management is a focus in the coaching track at all.
This is Marsha's world. A thought there.
It's a great question. It's not a primary emphasis in this track. There's like real tiny smatterings of it in here. The change really shows up in the enterprise track, and so it's one of the things that emerged for us as we were working through the learning objectives of defining a facilitation and coaching. And what we acknowledged was there was this whole field of change. I mean, coaching at its very heart is really about change, like where you're at today and where you want to be. And we ended up moving that and really addressing it in the enterprise track. So the enterprise coaching track is the one that's the holder and keeper of that organizational change learning.
Yeah, that's at the organizational level, and at the individual level, that is in this track for sure.
Yeah.
That's where we made the cut. So if you take courses that are accredited for these learning objectives in this track, you will learn about what an individual change process is, how to work with that, what that means for Agile roles, and how difficult it is for people to move into these new roles. And you'll even have an application about what to do, what to do about some of the people who are not able to fully occupy their role for whatever reason, and how you might help them through their own change curve. Now, everything, of course, you learn at the individual level can be applied at the department level, because departments are just collections of individuals. So, or the program level, whatever words you use in your organization. So that piece is absolutely in this track.
Excellent. Thank you, Lyssa.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Are there any others at this time? This program overview slide basically goes over what any of the tracks in the IC Agile roadmap does. And perhaps Marsha or Lyssa, would you like to elaborate?
It's so interesting because for our part, Marsha, I think that we've just really focused on the defines what to learn piece.
Yeah.
That's really been our role as industry thought leaders to come in and create that initial definition, and then have more industry thought leaders and potential students and potential training organizations vet the definition of what to learn. And the other pieces are what IC Agile focuses on, which is and helping people move through a learning path that focuses on their growth.
Yeah. I don't know. It strikes me as this might be of curiosity to folks, but I don't know how much everybody knows about IC Agile and how these tracks emerge, but they are volunteer efforts, crowdsourced, like in the community, and not just, if you look at the timeline for this one was, I think, 1.5 years, and then the enterprise coaching track, although that's not the focus of today, that track is it'll be 2 years in January, and it's just out in beta right now. So it's a pretty in-depth, I look at it as like crowdsourced way of defining what to learn in each of these. And when you look at the FAN, and certainly in this track as well, it's all volunteer effort that's gone into creating it, to reviewing it, to helping IC Agile with the accreditation process. And I think one of the other things that I'll speak for myself, is held as people move through the track is really, even at the expert gate, how do we focus on growth? And the gate review itself, which Kelly referred to a little while ago, is really about growth as well. So it's not just can you take a test, can you recite some knowledge and take a test, but it's can you apply what you learned, can you demonstrate it, and through a panel of your peers, and what's the feedback and growth that you can get from that. So that's what comes up for me as I read that slide. I'm not sure that, yeah.
I like that. I think that's absolutely what IC Agile is all about, in the focusing on growth piece in that slide. And I think that's what makes it really quite unique and very valuable to people.
Yeah.
Not about getting these letters behind my name. It's about really achieving something. And even when I've achieved it, there's a further horizon yet that I can start to see, So, yeah.
That's what got me interested, was the kind of pull factor into deepening Agile learning, and always being able to ask the question, what's next, and to feed that curiosity, and to go broad to the different blades of the fan, or continue to go deep in one particular discipline, and to pull everybody in who's coming, in a company, this new corporate organizations that are joining in as members. Everyone can be included somewhere in the disciplines. Coaching being so much at the heart of that.
Yeah. And when I go broad, you made me think about the fact that there's so many of the other tracks are really fascinating and very complementary to this one. I'm thinking specifically about the Agile leadership track right now, although others are as well. Boy, I tell you, everywhere we go, people say, our leaders are our biggest impediment to Agile right now. And I'm really excited that track is under development. And it seems to be I know I have an inside scoop, because Michael Hammond, who works with me, is fulfilling the role that Marsha fulfilled on this one. And so it looks like we're making good progress, which I'm really excited about, because boy, do we need it. And people who are also Agile coaches really could benefit from knowing, what are those leadership skills, knowledge, and qualities and mindsets that not only do we need to ask our leaders to have them, but we need to have them first. Right?
Yeah.
Very good. We have a question here from Gareth, whose mic isn't working, but he says he's a coach working with Xero in New Zealand. We have 2 coaches across the business and are just starting to look for facilitators as we grow. We're starting to develop our own Agile Fundamentals course and plan to become accredited by IC Agile. Yay! We will then move on to creating advanced courses for the tracks. Would you recommend we attend an existing IC Agile course before we attempt to create each advanced course? e.g. attend ICP ACC before we create our own version of it.
You know, unless you have a really strong set of folks in your organization already who are internationally accredited professional coaches and who have professional coaching, well, not only professional coaching, but also facilitation, because that coaching, so what people might not know is that the ACC coaching piece really covers 4 disciplines: professional coaching, facilitation, teaching, and mentoring. So if you look at those learning objectives and you say, wow, we have people who are truly experts in this outside the Agile world and know how to contextualize it for the Agile world, then you can probably just do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then absolutely it would be worthwhile. When I became a certified Scrum trainer, I went and saw 10 people's classes as input to designing my own. So I think that's always a good practice if you don't have everything you think you need on board already.
Good point. And people can find courses on the IC Agile website. Member organizations from all over the world load up their courses onto that search engine. And it's now even more searchable by region, by date. So you can find out who's offering what. There's a new region called virtual that you're going to be seeing more and more of as well. So.
Yeah.
You know, there's another aspect to this. I don't have quite fully formed, Gareth, but so there are a gazillion ways to teach these learning objectives. And it's really important, I think, that however your organization chooses to do it, that they actually have a take, a perspective on it. So, for example, at Agile Coaching Institute, our take is that we are creating really strong Agile coaches, but specifically, like right from the beginning, we're oriented toward those coaches moving into a world of transformation mastery, because that's what we're about. We want to create transformation coaches. So that informs everything we do about how we design these courses, what we expect people to get out of it, not only just checking the box on the learning objectives, but actually having a deeper kind of structure to it. And that's I think it's a virtuous model, and it's a model the professional coaching world has, that there's, a set of competencies held at the accreditation level by the International Coach Federation, and you have 70 professional coaching schools that teach totally different perspectives, but you can bet that at the end of the day, they're teaching the same, 12 or 15 competencies. You have the neuroscience coaching school, and you have the coactive coaching school, and you have the somatic coaching school, and on and on. So it's important, I think, to have some kind of deeper structure than just being able to, at the surface, convey the learning objectives. I hope that's helpful.
Well, you remind me to mention how learning objectives can be covered in so many different ways, not just through slides, but through games, through very interactive processes. There's no limit, really, and no prescription for how the learning objectives can be covered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we need a wide variety of different ways of doing it.
I think, Eleanor, you point to something that's also been an intention of ours as we've, both this track and the enterprise track, really tried to be very cautious of getting prescriptive in learning objectives so that course designers have the flexibility of how do I want to address this. Not every learning objective is a PowerPoint slide or delivering content or downloading content to somebody. So we've tried to really be about the knowledge, not about the how.
Right. And so IC Agile doesn't bake in any particular courseware or say that you have to use anything in particular.
In fact, in the Agile facilitation track, for example, or those set of learning objectives rather, it says have a facilitator stance, teach people what a facilitator stance is. Here are some minimum things that need to be in it, but basically each course creator has to create their own. The one in my course is very different than the one in Marsha's course, and both are good.
That seems to say something about the essence of agility too, that 10 different instructors are going to have 10 different courses that are 10 different experiences.
And resonate with a million different people in different.
Yeah.
And so people really need differentiation between these training organizations to find the one that really fits them.
Great point.
Yep.
We've covered the slides, so I could stop the share so that we come back together here in video form. I'll keep recording.